Hi there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Night Files. I'm your host, Juhi, and given that we look at cases from around the world, we're going to be looking at the case of the Chundawat family in Burari, India. While not purely unsolved, it is a cautionary tale of occult practices, ominous warnings, and mental psychosis. This is the case of the Burari deaths. July 1st, 2018. Morning in Burari. 79-year-old Gurcharan Singh, who usually went on morning walks with Lalit Chundawat, 45, noticed a glaring absence. Lalit had not showed up. Additionally, the local grocery store ran by the Chundawat family from the first floor of their home still remained closed at 7 a.m., an hour late. Phone calls and questions from neighbors and customers went unanswered, and people were confused. It was strange for such a large family, well known in the community, to suddenly go silent. When going to investigate this, Gurcharan Singh found the door of the family home open. He was not prepared for what he would find next. The scene before him consisted of 10 members of the Chundawat family, blindfolded and hanging in the courtyard of the house. They had even last been seen alive by neighbors less than 12 hours before. The police were called at around 7:29 a.m. Was this a robbery, a homicide, family annihilation, or something else? The Chundawat family was relatively well liked around the community. They had moved to their neighborhood in Burari around 1990 and ran a grocery shop and plywood business in the area. They were a relatively large yet close family. The previous family patriarch, Bhopal Singh, was well respected, and his death in 2007 ended up hitting the family hard, with the seemingly most affected member being Bhopal's son, Lalit Chundawat. Lalit, who is at the center of the tragedy, was a complex character. He was described as funny, reserved, responsible, and authoritative. He was also the only earning member when the Chundawat family moved to Delhi. He faced many troubles early in life, such as having to drop out of college due to illness, and losing his voice in an incident in which he was injured at his plywood shop. After the death of his father, he became deeply introverted and spent more and more time alone. Yet it was during a prayer ritual commemorating his father in which Lalit miraculously gained his voice back. He took this as a sign that his father was still there, watching him. It was around this time in which the family became more religious, and Lalit assumed the place of Bhopal in the family customs. They became vegetarian and stopped drinking. They engaged in more acts of worship. Lalit himself spent more time in nature and would offer food to animals. During an investigation of their deaths, the police found several diaries describing Lalit's thoughts and ideas in detail, with some entries going back 11 years. Much of what is written is complaining about various things about his family, ranting about how the family should change their ways. There were strict guidelines for their daily activities, behavior, their diet, and their rituals. It speaks of a day of punishment, as well as a ritual or bad tapasya, designed to allow them to meet their deceased patriarch, Bhopal Singh, for the purpose of thanking him for their success. Much of it all points to Lalit displaying delusions, mental instability, and some animosity towards his family. But more ominous is the journals also were found to contain rituals with instructions for how to tie one's own hands behind them, which police believe closely match what was found on the bodies. Police felt they had been planning this for some time. It's possible that they had not meant to kill themselves in this ritual despite what it did involve. Lilith's notes read that they are to be tied up and hanged, but it also explained that as soon as this was done, the deceased patriarch would appear to them, speak to them, then they would be released after trembling of the earth and sky and would be free to untie each other. One diary entry reads, "Everyone will tie their own hands, and when the kriya is done, then everyone will help each other untie their hands." Interviews with the Chundawat's family, friends, and neighbors gave a psychological profile of the family that indicated that they weren't suicidal in the least and were actively looking forward to the future. One of the family members, Priyanka, was engaged to be wedded the following week in a ceremony that the family had been hard at work planning for. Tragically, most of the family had likely not expected that they would actually die performing their ritual. In light of this, authorities began to treat this as a potential case of accidental suicide stemming from mass hysteria and a botched occult ritual. The theory that this has been murder began to fade in the eyes of the police. However, others have not been so sure. Relatives and surviving family members are skeptical that this was just a misguided ritual and have insisted that it had to have been murder. They claim that there was no reason to suspect that the family had been into such occult beliefs, or that they would have gone through with actually hanging themselves. They had not indicated to anyone that they had been planning such a thing. The family was also seen acting very normally in the days leading up to the deaths and not displaying any outward signs of distress. Still, the Chandawat family was seen on CCTV footage, casually buying materials used in the ritual. This, as well as the diaries, point towards very strange but intentional actions. One aberration in the case actually comes in the form of the body of the oldest family member, 77-year-old Narayana Devi, who was found dead in another room. She was not hanged, but appeared strangled, but by who and for what reason remains a mystery. In the end, some details about the case do remain up in the air. For example, why was Narayani Devi separated? How was an entire family able to be brought under such delusions leading to mass suicide? Did they truly believe they would remain alive? It's a chilling tale of cults and delusions, especially given that by all accounts, the Chandawats were normal and respectable members of their community. I hope you enjoyed learning more about this case with us tonight. If you yourself have any thoughts on the Chandawats' mindset during this whole ordeal, share it with us below. Otherwise, I wish you well and hope you have a good night. This is Night Files, signing off.